Hi, Anders. And I hope everybody can see me fine. And happy Tuesday. It's been a day where I've just tested. Hey, welcome. Drop me Tuesday emoji. It's like the most productive day, but I get always so tired because I usually do something unusual on Tuesday morning in my workout and then I'm just like tired all day just from that. So that's a good thing, right? So hi Virpi, hi everybody, welcome. Just drop me an emoji. Hi Bradley. And how are you guys doing? It's super hot in Slovenia and we're having this, amazing mix of weather. So it's like raining one day and then it's like super hot, another day. So it's just been kind of like, hey Tina, welcome. Drop me your kind of like, Tuesday emoji. It's all things. I think Tuesday is such a beautiful day and powerful day because it's kind of like, it's full of promises. So let's make this Tuesday count. And so for those of you who don't know me that well yet, and you have been in this group for a while, or are new because we keep having new members. I'm very picky about that, which you already know. So this is not just, this is not ever going to be like, a gazillion members type of a group, because that's just not the purpose of this group. So, but the purpose of this group is definitely, for me to be working with you on those quantum leaps, right? Hey, Bradley. Isn't it early for you? Yes, that's a powerful Tuesday emoji, man. Awesome, thank you for joining us. So this is kind of like it came up, on several different occasions, and this is something that I've kind of like put together. And this was, I think one of the things was actually, we were having a mindset call with my accountability coach, and she brought us up, and I was like, oh, I remember this. Like we used to do this in my coaching education, and this is also a big part of manifestation process. And also since my client was asking for some additional support, and I was like, well, let me just explain this, let me do live on this today, and kind of like I'm gonna incorporate 3 different things that actually talk about not just mindset, not just productivity, but also how to lead with vision. And this is not just a fancy word. And let me explain, let me kind of like guide you into that. So you actually need to be writing this down. And this is, it goes whether you're focusing, in 2020, like, on business, which we all are, on more money or better health, or, better friends or better relationships, like whatever is your, purpose or goal or what have you. And, it's always going to be several things to kind of like, it's going to always be holistic, right? So don't forget, besides health, don't forget relationships, don't forget, free time, don't forget, to rest and restore when you have time off. Don't forget to find the things that actually are kind of like bringing you joy, and don't forget to connect with your creative side, right? We have like at least 9 basic elements to what, kind of like helps us feel more, not just satisfied, but also excited, right? So we need to be like always going between those 2, like feeling, kind of like safe and kind of like, going for that kind of like safety, but also excitement, right? So it's always going to be yin yang, dancing in that direction. Hey Ramona, hi sweetie. Drop me a Tuesday emoji. Show us how you feel about this Tuesday. So when I'm talking about something that you have, like that we all have in our minds, because people often get overwhelmed. What Tina was explaining, she's like, well, I need to focus on my family, and then I need to focus on my relationships, and then I need to focus on building my, for example, example, side business, and then I need to focus on, working in my, job. So it's kind of like, all the things, right? And so this is something that entrepreneurs are very familiar with, like juggling, right? And it can often lead to, some type of like overwhelm. And especially if you don't have yet, a team or, people who are actually there to support you, right? Then it's kind of like easier to get like, to kind of like feel overwhelmed and feel like, oh my God, I need to be doing all the things, right? And, nothing is getting done. And it's kind of like, it can feel like you're getting into that burnout, right? And there's no need for that, right? Because first and foremost, when I talk about a vision, it's always going to be something that is going to, lead, right? It's something, when we have a clear vision, and this is something that we go to and journal on and read and, connect to daily, and whenever we're having like challenges, right? So that's kind of like the 12 months, right? And you can make it even longer, but for now, for today, let's keep it like, so we have a 12-month vision, right? And then we have like a 12-week type of like, let's say, productivity plan, right? Because 12 weeks, I usually, before I started doing like 4 months periods, like, programs with my clients, I would always work just like 90 days because it's such a good, it creates just a proper amount of like urgency, and there's no time to waste, right? And so it's kind of like those 90 days or like 12 weeks-ish is just perfect, to be creating amazing results, and kind of like, it helps mind to think in like a very shorter, periods of time, and it kind of like, it chunks out, those, what I call, like, it's good for, more creative people, right? Because we think in terms of like projects, right? So when we're, like a launch or a leap or something with the client, it's never going to be like, oh, this is what is going to happen, like this leap is going to take 12 months. That's not something that brain can get excited about without getting at the same time really kind of like, oh my God, that's going to take such a long time, right? Because the leaps and the quantum leaps and the time leaps and the time bending and anything around manifestation, anything around collapsing, whether it's income or time, it always kind of like, we need to kind of grasp our mind around this new concept, which is that all those results, all those outcomes, they're already available for you right now in this moment, as it is that relationship, as it is that body, as it is that health, as it is that well-being, as it is that wealth, right? But it's kind of like, the mind goes, well, it's going to take me 5 years because we've been trained to believe that, all those things take time. But since we know that time is only like a man-made thing, right? It's not real. Time is just, a thing that we can actually bend and that we can actually kind of like tailor, right? We can literally bend time. The moment you start thinking about that, oh, I have plenty of time, but at the same time, I want this to happen, to occur, to, appear right now in this moment. You start thinking in like the time bending, quantum leaping, type of mindset, basically, right? And that's what we need when we go about those leaps, because we need to believe that something that is not seen is actually quite possible. And that's where we start like building that belief in the, let's say, 12 months plan is always something that, as I was explaining to my client just before, it's kind of like we start with writing out that story. So it's basically, we did this once in like a marketing course as well, and it was more like, it was more creative. So it's kind of like as if you would be appearing in a magazine, and the magazine, the journalist would be writing about you and what all you have achieved in that period of time. So like, let's say 12 months, right? So it would be, very detailed. It would be a little bit about you, and then it would be like, all the things, that you have achieved, basically. And this is how you start writing out that vision for yourself, right? So basically, you take a piece of paper or you put it in a Word document, and you go, a letter to myself, you know, and, you know, from this, you know, from today, and then, you know, 12 months from now on. So basically you're writing to yourself, you know, on the, you know, to the person that you're going to be, and all the things that you're going to do, have, and be, basically become, you know, in 2021. So that's 14th of July on my end, right? And kind of like just be very clear and detailed around, you know, all the things that I mentioned before, right? And be kind of like very generous with yourself, right? Like, you know, all the things around health, or all the things around relationships and family, and kind of like, I'm just trying to make this a little bit brighter. All the things around, you know, money, all the things around business, and all the things around, you know, whatever is important to you, right? And so just write it out and be very clear about it, and it's already done. It's already, you're way past it, right? So all the big events, all the small events, all the things that you right now seem like, oh my God, like how am I ever? Just put it like in vision, letter to yourself, and kind of, you know, write it in a way that it's already done. It's already, you know, it's already been created, basically, right? 1 second. Can you guys see me? Because I'm like, I'm not sure what's happening. Let's see. Oh, I'm here. Okay. So it's just, it got really dark. So I'm sorry for that. So does this make sense? So that's just like a letter to yourself, basically, right? Yes. Thank you, Tina. And so then when we talk about, let's say what Tina was asking, oh, like then, you know, I have all these things and I have all these projects, right? And then we go about this in terms of like, so this is like a long-term vision, and you can write it out. For some people it's like what, for example, what Bradley was sharing the other day in the group. I'm just looking through the group, like imperfect action, done is better than perfect. That's like a theme, right, for the 12 weeks. So I would say 12 weeks, a theme for the 12 weeks for the work. For somebody is going to be, you know, becoming more visible. For somebody is going to be becoming more fit. For somebody is going to be, you know, sleeping, right? For somebody is going to be, I don't know, whatever, you know, becoming more confident. Because those like shorter term goals, so it's kind of like projects, right? It works really well, you know, with our mind. And so we don't make it like quarterly or whatever that language is in corporate, but it's like, we just make it like, oh, I can handle it, right? Because basically to change a habit, we need at least like 21 days of repetition. And it's something that we need to work on every day, right? And so when you know that, it's kind of like easier for you to understand, oh, I'm changing a habit, I'm changing a part of myself, I'm changing my personality, I'm changing the way I'm responding, I'm changing what I'm believing about myself, about the world, about the money, about, you know, health, about well-being, right? And so you allow yourself to have those, right, like at least 21 days, but we're talking about 12 weeks, so that you have that extra time for implementation, right? And so, for example, Nahima was sharing, like, she is focusing, for example, on completion in 2020, right? So she's having this kind of like, you know, it's a yearly theme, right? But it could be as well a 12-week type of a theme, right? So for example, okay, there are lags. Okay, 1 second, Bradley, 1 second. So for example, maybe for Tina, like what would be, you know, Tina, what would be your theme for 12 weeks, right? Like for all the things that you're trying to create, like it just, if you focus on, so let's say from today, you know, and then, you know, you count 12 weeks, so it's going to be around 6th of October, right? That's totally manageable, something that you can work on, tweak, you know, every week, and kind of like go, oh, like, you know, this is all the things that I, you know, did do, and, you know, then we go even more specific around, you know, how to approach that, right? But it's like, just to kind of like have it in, you know, like, okay, let me focus on what do I have to do in order, you know, to achieve all those goals, right? So it's kind of like, you kind of like focus on 3 projects, let's say 1 personal, for example, 2 business projects, right? And kind of like give yourself that, let's say 5 steps for each of the 3 projects of like, how, like, what are all the things that I actually need to do in order for, let's say, make more money, or, in order for it to launch, or in order for it to become more visible. So for example, let's say something that I'm working on, right now, becoming more visible, or, how we call that, is kind of like, appearing on podcasts, and, kind of like appearing on YouTube videos, and like all the things, right? So that's something that I've been focusing on, for a little while now. And, you can already see that, I've been posting, I've been having those interviews, right? So it's already in my schedule, because everything that we're working on, it should always, it's always going to be visible in your schedule, and then it's always going to be visible also in your bank account. Yes, but so what would be the top 3 priorities, right? Areas in your life, or priorities that you want to be focusing on for the next just 12 weeks, right? So that's something that you can, and then you can not, like, it's not to say that you're not going to be working on everything else, but it's kind of like deciding like on what are 3 areas that we want to focus on, that we know are most urgent. That's kind of like where we can start, right? And then, there's always going to be also other things that are going to come up, because it's not perfect, right? So remember, imperfect action, right? And so then we focus on, like, we go weekly, right? So we set, let's say 5, things that we need to do every week. And kind of like, so for example, podcasting. So for example, I did that, and so we were going about scheduling that, right? And then we had the issue with the time zones, for example, which I was not, that aware of, right? But so that was kind of like a thing, right? And I was like, okay, then we really need to like work around that. So we needed to create a different schedule, and then so like I needed to open a different piece in my, like a time piece in my calendar, that I would actually allow, people from globally to, actually book in time to do a podcast with me, right? So I didn't kind of like foresee that. So, it took some time, and it took some skill, and it took some creativity on my end. And, with Lily, we did that really well. So now it seems like it's working, right? But it's like, remember, imperfect action. It's not like we need to be all prepared, all, branded, before we even, enter the conversation. It's not like that at all, because, we're all humans, right? So people will understand. And, everything is, we can figure it out, right? So it's fixable, right? So, hey, Daniela. Ooh. I was just telling about the story in the beginning, but this is going to be helpful for you too. So this is kind of like, so basically we start with this story, we write it out, right? And that's like the 12 months kind of like vision, and it's very detailed, and it's written in this positive expectation tone, but it's like, it's at the same time, it's already done. It's a done thing, and you need to include all the areas that are important to you. So, family, health, well-being, personal time, money, business, fitness, like all the things, right? And so once that is done, then we can go and do the 12 weeks plan, which is kind of like, it's so much easier for the brain to process, because it's kind of like a project type of a thing, right? And so it's kind of like, okay, let me work on a specific theme, right? So we go, let's say, becoming more, I don't know, disciplined for some people, or becoming more, for some people, more open to just showing up and just doing the thing, right? Like, which seems to be the theme for this group, right? And, not overcomplicating, and not, kind of like working on things until they're like perfect. And then kind of like we focus on, let's say, 3 different projects, whether it's personal or business, and then let's assign, let's say 5 things for each of those projects, and we work on those every single week. And then we tweak it by at the end of the week or start of the week, usually start of the week, and we kind of tweak if things didn't get done, why didn't it get done, and you kind of like start evaluating yourself, you know, how productive or effective you were. And for example, I was saying, you know, we were having this like a bit of a setback with when we were scheduling the podcast guesting calls, and you know, we were like, I was not aware of that, you know, the time difference is going to be such a big thing, but it was for many of them, because they just couldn't fit into my schedule. So basically what I had to do was just kind of like get creative and get willing, and you know, reorganize my schedule, you know, open a new schedule that was just kind of like available for those people, so that they could actually, you know, schedule in, you know, in those times that were, you know, fitting for both sides. And that was something that I was not aware of beforehand, and so we just need to respond and, you know, do the thing really fast and not be perfect about it. And so that's all good, right? Now everything is scheduled, right? But the thing about not being so obsessed with, you know, getting things perfect is like kind of like focusing on, let's do as many things as possible, but you know, doing it in a way that it's aligned with the long-term vision, right? So if the long-term vision is, I don't know what it is for you guys, right? Like, then you know, that I through myself is my core in this core to believe and to change my mindset. When I'm starting, 1 second. Yes. So yes, when we start losing motivation, when you're feeling down, but basically this is like something that I would do every day. I would reread the you know, the long-term vision, so of the vision of the 12 months, or even you know, I even have this it's kind of like a longer term, so it's kind of like a lifelong vision, and then I have segments, you know, I think there's like many of them, and then it goes into a little bit of a manifesto, and it goes into giving back, and it goes into relationships. So it's kind of like, it's very detailed. So from what I'm talking right now, which is more like a piece, or you know, 2 pieces of paper maximum, then you know, you can make that really detailed and have your own kind of like journal around that, post, you know, some pictures, you know, give some pictures to it so it's more visual, and just kind of like work on it, because it kind of like grows with you. And once, for example, one goal is accomplished, like I have a specific, you know, kind of like, yeah, your life letter basically. So it's kind of like it grows with you. And because the human brain is so weird, it gets really, really tricky, and it wants to convince us sometimes, like, you know, you haven't really done anything, you know, what you have done, it's not really worth anything, and all those things, right? So, but when you have it written down, for example, client results, or, you know, people being happy with your service, or, you know, women who, you know, praise you, or whatever it is, right? Or, you know, friend who is, you know, generous, you know, with the compliments, or whatever is of importance to you, you know, and then you just kind of like put that in that journal to keep, you know, to kind of like remind yourself how awesome and amazing you are. And so, you know, when you read that every day, it affirms in your mind, and it starts becoming the reality, right? So this is how you can actually change how you're behaving, how you're feeling, how you're reacting, how you're responding, how your relationship is as well, right? And this is how you can actually, because in the beginning it's going to be unbelievable, but through daily action, through confirming, through journaling, it becomes the reality of your life, right? And it's, of course, it's not going to be perfect. We're always going to be tweaking that, right? So also this is kind of like what Nahima was asking me. It's kind of like, what I'm talking about is like, it's 12 weeks of like, you know, it's kind of like focusing on a themed project, for example, right? And so having that, you know, kind of like niching that down, and kind of like focusing on, you know, what are the three projects, right? Let's say body, or, you know, business, for example, visibility, or simply, you know, creating more money, for example, right? And then, you know, what all 5 things needs to be done, you know, on the daily, or, you know, in that week, so that we know we're getting those small steps, and we're actually achieving those goals, right? And then, for example, on Monday morning, you examine that, and you kind of like are, you know, seeing, you know, why am I failing here? You know, do I need more mindset work, or, you know, do I just need to, I don't know, hire somebody, or why is this, you know, why does this keep appearing as not done? And kind of like, well, you know, I've been, let's say, I've noticed that I was just kind of like getting in a really crappy mood, but I was like, kind of like, I forgot that, you know, because we were having this. Yeah, no, it's not a coincidence. I always worked with 12-week packages. Yes. So because it's a very productive type of time span. So 12 weeks is a very, very good, you know, for a mind to kind of think of like, oh, like I need to prepare for a marathon, or I need to prepare for, you know, the challenge, right, or whatever it is. So it's kind of like it's manageable, it's graspable, and then it's tweakable, right? So no, it's not a coincidence. But yeah, our package right now is, I think, maybe 14 weeks or so. So yeah, that's a little bit longer. I think we have 4 months. So that was just for implementation. That extra time is implementation time. And so this is something that I'm just playing with, right? And so this is where you see, because not to say like with Daniela's work, it's a little bit like, you know, something that I'm gonna be possibly creating as well, but I would still be going for those more like, you know, 12 weeks of kind of like themed, you know, topics in a 12 months program, so that people feel like, oh, like this is something that I can manage, like I'm in this type, like I'm in this segment of, you know, yearly program. And this is something that Daniela did as well with her project. So that's all good, because kind of like human mind needs to kind of like grasp things. Otherwise it just starts feeling like, just starts, you know, falling apart and goes into all places, right? So that's why curriculum is, in that sense, it's very something that, you know, mind can, you know, grasp on and feels like, okay, like I know where I'm at, I know what I'm doing, right? So it feels kind of like safe. So Nahima also asks kind of like, yeah, so we kind of like, so at the end of 12 weeks, I would definitely reassess, and then we also like, okay, pivot for sure, right? So we go, oh, like, how did it go? You know, because some things are easier, let's say everything around body or fitness is kind of like visible sooner, you know, for most people, or health, for example, or, you know, if you're sleep deprived, this is what I wanted to say before. Because I was staying at Alesh's house, and so he's having this like small, you know, he's having this baby puppy. And so the puppy was, you know, just kind of like not allowing us to sleep, right? So that was kind of like having a baby, as most of you know, right? And so, you know, I was like getting sleep deprived, and I was like, oh my God, this is no fun. Like, you know, this is not funny. So I could immediately see, you know, the level of energy just went like, you know, down, and kind of like the ability to think, and, you know, that clarity. Like on the Saturday, I was just like, oh my God, like I just need something, you know, to get my energy up. But thankfully it was like a weekend, right? But it's just kind of like, this is something that, you know, you know, kind of like we need to foresee, right? So for example, we need to foresee what all could go wrong. Yeah, new puppies are a lot of work, I know. So yeah, that was taking a lot of my attention, right? So, or for example, when we have small children, you know, that's kind of like, it takes work, and it takes, you know, a lot of attention. And so that's something that we need to kind of like start thinking ahead of time. The same as with, you know, building with this 12-month plan or 12-week plan, you know, it's something that, you know, we need to foresee. And so if we can prepare in advance, then, you know, there's less of surprise element to that. So if there's less of surprise element to that, you know, we can still feel, you know, sort of, you know, relatively safe in that, and kind of like just be focusing on seeking solution, right? So that's one of the, you know, when you know the problem, like it's just like then we start focusing on solutions, right? We don't focus on the problem, right? And so I just kind of like removed myself from the puppy, right? Because it was just like, that's the best way to get my sleep in, right? Does this make sense, guys? Because I want to share the you know, the newest kind of like theory that I'm testing, right? And also kind of like I would just go, allow yourself to test. Like, I don't know why we forgot about that. Like, you know, we are smart human beings. We get to test things, and, you know, we get to, you know, play with our, you know, business and life, and kind of like we just are allowed to be creative and test things, right? And just kind of like play with it, right? So what I've came across was also, I think it was one of the fitness gurus, and she was actually talking about something that is very mindset and productivity. Yeah, so this was kind of like, so this was something for Daniela. So this was like, she said that she's having this like she's practicing this 12-hour thing. And I was like, what is that? Like, right? And so what she does is basically, it's kind of like a weekly thing. So if you calculate, and this is done, right? Because I've tested it, right? So it's like in 1 week, right? So 7 days, right? If you allow yourself to sleep 8 hours, you know? And so with that, and so if you then have, I think you have left, I think it's like, if you spend 50 hours in your business and 50 hours in your, you know, family life, basically, right? So we are now at whatever we are. So what you have left is 12 hours, pure 12, like whole 12 hours in 1 week. So that's 7 days, right? And so those 12 hours, and, you know, it's something that we get to use for, you know, self-care, you know, fitness, or, you know, gym or whatever, you know, that time, dating, and, you know, all the things that bring us joy, friends and things, right? And so I was like actually amazed, because we tend to forget and focus on, oh my God, you know, I have zero time, and, you know, I have no time for myself. But basically all those, you know, hours add up. And, you know, this was something that was really surprising to me. So basically, if we have 50 hours to work, which is plenty. So, you know, if you go about it in 6 days, that's like 8 hours per day or so, right? Nothing, you know, super extensive in the normal, you know, time frame. And so 50 hours, you know, for family, right? So you have half if you want that balance, right? And then you have 8 hours to sleep every day. So, right, what you're going to be left with is 12 hours to spend on your self-care, or your, you know, meditation, or going out, or whatever it is, right? I'm not sure, you know, what is all allowed right now, where you're at, right? But basically it means you get to invest those 12 hours in yourself, right? That's why I was like, really interesting, right? And, you know, I started to using that, and it seems to be something very interesting to test. So I dare you to test that. Daniela, you need to be testing that because you have plenty of time. But yes, so that's kind of like what I was, you know, trying to go for, because if we think about it in like 12, 12, 12, it's like we have plenty of time, right? And I don't know what people do, like, you know, where do they put their time? You know, like, you need to be asking yourself kind of more like, because it's not about, you know, having everything like, you know, super in your schedule, but at the same time, it's like, you know, what all are your openings, or, you know, where all could you be much more productive, right? Because often what we realize is, like, specifically with certain types of personalities, is when they have urgency and where they have this pressure of like, oh, I really need to get things done, like, you know, that last minute type of a feeling. And, you know, if they are, you know, good, you know, if they listen to their coach, they get things done, you know, that, you know, for some people it would take them, you know, weeks, but, you know, you can actually get things done in like an hour or 45 minutes that other people take, you know, days. Yes, you do. Oh, you still do that 4 a.m., 6 a.m. Oh, you're amazing. I could not get up that early. So, but yeah, with Daniela, for example, we need to figure out a new, so kind of like life balance, family balance plan, which is most likely going to include, you know, some outside help or not, but for sure there's going to be some changes in that. But it's kind of like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, life is always going to be throwing, you know, things at us, right? So it's kind of like, when I was saying, you know, when you're focusing on those kind of like, so it's 12 weeks, so we have 3 different like projects, you know, something personal, something business, right? And then, for example, you know, 5 ways, like 5 things that, you know, you can do about that and you need to do about that, you know, daily, weekly. But then at the same time, writing out, let's say 3 things, what can come, what can get in the way. And then also, how am I going to deal with that, right? So you already are seeking solutions in advance so that we're not so surprised, for example. Yeah, I know, Daniela. Yeah, there's, still more to play. Yeah, lots of uncertainty now. Yes, so one suggestion would be like, so unless you like uncertainty, which some people do, it's a good drive for some people, right? It can be also kind of like the solution is already here, and that type of a mindset. And basically you are, yeah, we'll figure it all out. Don't worry about that. I mean, I know you're not worried, but it was just, it was like it's a good shock. But it's still a change, and you see how people respond to change, right? So it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So, but this is kind of like how we can play about it, and we go and we kind of like help ourselves to, be more focused. Like with, Tina also, like she's having a lot of projects. She's going through some turmoil time, right? And it's just kind of like believing just that, that it's already happened. It's just what's, it's kind of like, believing that it's all happening for a reason, and it's something that we're learning from it. It's kind of like it's a growth opportunity, right? And so we just need to be adults about it and kind of like be the CEO of that, right? So it's kind of like, what does life want from me, instead of like, what do I want from myself, kind of like all the time. I'm talking about Tina as well, right? Or how the family life, right? Because I remember that it was one of the crucial moments when I was growing up, like 9 years ago, when I stopped asking myself kind of like, what is, why is life not delivering to me? But all of a sudden I needed to focus on my baby, basically. So that question just kind of changed or transformed into, what is good for the higher best for all people included, right? Kind of like that just opens up, some possibilities and some channels, invisible channels that are not even, visible right now. But it kind of, at the same time, it really calmed me down. And so it was kind of like, this was kind of like from energy work and from, working with people, because where you need to be open, to opportunity, to people that you're dealing with, right? But at the same time, you want to be like protecting your own energy, if you will, right? It's not the best term, but like just kind of like sustaining your own energy, right? So it was always like before the sessions with, one-on-one clients, whether it was fitness or, the therapy sessions, was always kind of like, asking for guidance and, to be guided in the highest best of everybody involved. And this is something that I've kind of like sticked with that, to this day, even though I add other energy or, spirit-led, affirmations, if you will, when I'm working with my clients and when they're working on their, specific leaps. They don't know I do this behind the scenes, right? But it's because it's a lot of like energy work as well, so they can be like really present with their belief and, really be showing up for themselves and for their clients, right? So this is kind of like how you can help yourself and how you can help the family, right? Because if you really show up and if you really show up and come through, then, others will kind of like be following your lead, and then you can lead with your story, right? Rather than, just kind of like agreeing with another person's story, right? Because they don't know necessarily what they're doing, right? So this is kind of like, if you want to be that leader, I'm talking to everybody and including myself, right? You really want to show up with that story, because as unbelievable as it is, right? It's like, it's a story that, when we're co-creating it, it's not so much, well, what am I saying? What am I claiming, right? Like, is this going to be fine? Is this going to be something that I can handle? Yes, if you decide so, then it will be something that you're going to handle, right? And in so many ways, for example, living this kind of like blended family life where, I need to juggle a lot of things, but it's a blessing, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to have my, Tuesdays and Thursdays, off, and, weekends, every second weekend off, and work on, myself and my business, and have a relationship that I have, right? if that would not be the case. But for sure, it took some emotional maturity in the beginning, and kind of like realizing all those things, that actually it can be an opportunity, actually it can be something where I can, you know, use that time separate from my child, for example. And that was a decision. I remember that, like, that I'm going to use the time where I'm away from my child to help, you know, myself, but also her, you know, to help build our future, the best future possible, right? Yes, Tina, of course there is light at the end. Of course. Of course you're walking on the right path. It's your path. Nobody gets to say anything about that, right? But at the same time, we always like, we listen and we tune in, you know, to the universe, and kind of like, you know, where do I need to show up? Because it's really not about us as much as it is, you know, what is our purpose? Who are we here to serve? You know, how are we here to lead? You know, and it's not always comfortable, because, you know, I have self-doubt, and I have like, I need to really tune in sometimes and be like, okay, like how, like, where is this going? Like, you know, how is this showing up? Like, how is this, like, things are coming through that are so much bigger, and I'm even sometimes scared to talk about it, because then people always go like, oh, what are you saying? Like, what are you claiming? Like, what are you believing? And it's like, but it's my vision. So there's nothing to do about that, right? It's not like something that I'm just, you know, claiming because it's fancy, you know, when I'm talking about, but this has been, 2020 was like, you know, helping 100 people to get to their first million. And I don't know how, but this is what, you know, keeps showing up. So I'm just following along now, right? I'm not resisting it, right? So what I'm talking about is becoming willing in that highest vision. Is you become basically the vessel, the vehicle, you know, for that higher purpose to be expressed through you, right? And it's like, for some people that's not even a big goal. For me, it's an amazing goal, you know, and I want 100 people to get there, you know, 100 women who are so well deserving, right? And so that would be my, you know, heart desire fulfilled, for sure, right? But it's not something that I can envision right now. How is that gonna happen? I know it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Daniela, yes, I'm definitely helping you, right? But what does that mean, right? So that means that when that vision becomes like a little bit clear, then some action, some step, some direction is gonna show up, right? And that showed up in like January, and I was like so uncertain about it, because it was such a, you know, it was a big investment in so many ways, time-wise, and, you know, it was a business school, and, you know, in English, and like all the things, right? But I just kind of like knew this is something that I need to do, not just for myself, but like for my clients, right? That's kind of like what I can lead with, you know? And so also for myself, for sure. But it's a uncomfortable learning path, you know, that it has so many details to it. Yes, of course. Yeah, that's alignment. Thank you, Daniela. That's so cool to hear. Yes, millions, right? Because I'm talking about millions, but right now I'm talking about, you know, bringing 100 to a million, just to kind of like inspire people to think about it, because we are so stuck. You know, sometimes people get so limited in, you know, how we perceive ourselves, and it's like again, if we can start working on that vision every day, working on that self that we're becoming, then millions are in our future. And that's something like Daniela has been working on that for a long time. It's not something that she just like, you know, she just kind of like came up with, right? Yes, first one first, yes, for sure. So, you know, but she has been kind of like birthing this idea for such a long time, right? And so then I know that's how universe works. Yes, for sure. So, you know, and we don't know how, but we're just like following the inklings, and then we say yes to things that appear that are going to be helping in that way, or we make investments, we dedicate time and energy, and, you know, all those, you know, days and nights where we could be, you know, doing our pedicures, right, and manicures. So I'm just kidding, right? Nothing wrong with manicures, but what I'm saying is a lot of my days, or, you know, evenings and nights are spent with researching and studying and, you know, writing and reading and kind of like trying to comprehend how, you know, is this going to emerge. So and this is a beautiful struggle, right? It's a great bliss, you know, type of a moment, because as we know, the more we take action in that, the more, you know, that reality becomes, you know, a thing, right? Yes, like, so Daniela is going to be a millionaire, right? And I think Tina, if she would be able to open up to that and kind of like allow herself to step into outside of a job position, or maybe even there, you know, that's totally a possibility for her too, right? But millions also, you know, it brings responsibilities and it brings that level of like service or delivery or just smart, you know, business strategy. It's not magic as we all know it, right? So was this helpful, guys? It was so nice to talk to you a little bit. So, yes. So this was kind of like where we start working on that, and it's I mean, it really depends what type of leaps we're creating, right? But it really doesn't need to be, you know, those incremental steps, because I think the more people get used to having those leaps also financially, yes, thank you, sweetie. You know, the more we get familiar with kind of like receiving larger amounts of money, because that's kind of uncomfortable too, and it takes like, you know, you need to manage it, you need to, you know, kind of like organize it, you need to like invest, you need to save, you need to like it. So it's work with money, right? But it's a luxury problem to have, right? And at the same time, always being thinking like long term, right? And being focusing on creating this family wealth, which is something that I'm a very, very strong, you know, believer in, right? And so this is where, you know, we are the pillars, right? And no matter how, you know, other people see us, but we are the pillars, and there's like so much building, you know, inside of us, right? And inside of every one of you and each one of you, right? So it's kind of like, that's the important, that's the juice, that's the matter, that's the belief, and that's the faith, right? And then we put it all into action, okay? So I don't want to be too long. So thank you everybody, you know, for being here with me. And if you have any questions on the things as we discussed, you know, just drop it, you know, underneath the live, or, you know, talk to me in the DM as usually. So, you know, have a powerful Tuesday, and think about, you know, do the homework, do the story, do the 12 weeks, and then do the, you know, test the 12-hour that I would strategy that I was talking about. It's a very interesting, you know, strategy or productivity tip that actually works really, really well, especially if you need to kind of like be, you know, be between balance the family and kind of like business and family, right? So, and I know a lot of you is you know, need to do that. So, you know, you're welcome, and, you know, talk to me, okay? Bye.